listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. What? Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put it back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to U.S. Southern plantations. Penniers, Jim Crow, and mass incarceration. Redlining lynchings. We are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one. Cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire. Anti-black, we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country. To win, you need our energy. You gon' see. Listening to Reset Race. You now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Okay. So welcome to Reset Race. This is Samantha Angelique. Today I will be, leading the charge since MG has abandoned me for his beautiful daughter who he's spending his day with. So he's being a good Black man raising his daughter. So we're going to support that and we're going to wish them a good, happy Sunday, which y'all, this comes out on Tuesdays, but it's recorded on Sunday. Well, at least this Sunday. So today we have a guest. So we're going to start with our guest. So this is not breaking the color barrier, but we are mixing more, which I actually kind of enjoy because I enjoy having conversations with our non-descendant of chattel slavery brothers and sisters. Sound like Cornel West. My brother, my sister.
He said
So,
vanilla brother, he calls it.
Yourself.
Yeah, he would call someone like me a vanilla brother, right? Is that?
yeah. Our vanilla brothers and sisters. Actually, at this point, I don't even think you're allowed to say that anymore because white people are getting more sensitive about the labels. Like nobody wants to be a Becky anymore, and vanilla. They're like, oh well, you're what is it?
Am I canceled already?
Into an item.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm if you guys want a few drops of vanilla extract today, glad to be here. I'm John from House of Del Vento. That's not a restaurant, it's a podcast. I have a small podcast and got into the reparations lately from a little bit of Clubhouse, from watching your guys' show, just from whatever algorithm is. But it's an intriguing argument. I've heard a little bit here and there. I'm definitely for it. I'd probably lean on this kind of center right angle, but pretty liberal. The other day I was called a Northeastern carpetbagger. So I guess I'm like one of those Northeastern Republican types. So it's interesting to see how the reparations arguments fits right to left. So really happy to do some research, talk about it and stuff. It's cool. So my family, as white Italians, my grandpa basically came from a bunch of peasants that didn't know much except for making pizzas and things like that. Went and shot some Nazis for a couple months, came home, got himself a free house. So he got a free house, was able to move out of a neighborhood, was able to get free health care from the VA, was able to get some payments here or there, start a business, get a nice loan to start a pawn shop. And a bunch of idiots and criminals a couple generations later, me and my brother are able to have a nice little house and do something. So veterans homeowners relief was separate. And then one of my grandfathers, when he came back, he did some farming in Oklahoma. So he had some farming things. So actually, the GI Bill didn't affect my family at all. That's another thing that's interesting. There were so many little ditty programs, and so that's interesting because my family was just they just needed the house, so they just needed that veterans. That was a small little sneaky program that they got into with like think he said like $30 down or something. But yeah, the GI Bill was the big one. But yeah, there were a lot of other sneaky programs that, as long as you were able to get into, really interesting.
Yeah, we look at it as a handout because there wasn't really a lot of work that was exchanged for a lot of these gifts. Like, at least your family came and got shot at for a little bit. Like, a lot of people just kind of came off and kind of had to move west, which I understand they had to fight with some Native Americans. But if you're going to steal people's land, you should have to fight for it. I'm just saying. But as you listed, your family did get a little bit of something that they were able to build something better with.
Exactly.
Which isn't a bad thing. It just should have happened for all of us. And since it didn't, now y'all got to run back and repair that.
Yep, that's the whole argument.
They've happened to me. They've happened to my family. So whatever I rant or say today, I'm 100% for reparations, ADOS. I think a lot of people on the right will be for them. I'm 100% for it. And I think it's, I'm to the tune of 6.4 quadrillion over this. I think we can get it. We can get global money together. We can get all these countries together and make it a global read. We can get 6.4 quadrillion.
My nigga.
And ARC, acknowledge, redress, closure, make it happen. So there's the thesis opening statement right there.
Oh, shit. He went
for
the
yeah, that was great.
So
when I listen to your show, Sam always starts so hard. She tells people they're a traitor to her race and everything right at first. And I'm like, man, so these guys start really hard. So
I didn't call her a traitor. I called her an enemy.
I tried, but thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, I didn't call her a traitor. I called her an enemy. For you to be a traitor, you have to already be a part of a group. She is not a part of the poor Black community, so she can't betray them because she doesn't know them. So she's just an enemy. She's no different than an outsider who comes in and starts attacking the group. No different. She just has a Black face, and people think she's cute. And like I said, she's just. I just wish she would stop talking about Black issues. I need her to go be one of those new Negroes that doesn't talk about Black stuff ever. But if she did that, they wouldn't care about her because they need her to be this person who goes and talks to Black people, but everyday Black people are not listening to her. Okay. John, without the H, you're up.
Yeah, Sam, I'm John C. I'm an American Negro and I don't listen to it. I'm an everyday Negro that doesn't listen to it. So, But yeah, I'm back again with the fam. For some reason, I'm still on the show and I don't know why, but I'm always happy to be here. Sam, Cousin Mud, we got a guest. I ain't gonna lie, John, thank you, John. You the first white person I ever heard say some shit like that, some real shit like that. So thanks for bringing him on the show. We about to go in on Saga. He got a Clark Kent haircut, so you know how this go. We about to go in.
Well, John, I like to curate my white people like they curate us.
She about to go in tonight. I'm about to be good. She about to go off, son.
Right now.
She about to go off.
So you're divesting, huh?
Who's missing is 80.
Real. And I grew up with a lot of Italians too. Like, you know what I'm saying? My wrestling coach was Italian. And the thing about Italians, they are some of the most caring, loving, racist people on the planet Earth. On the planet Earth, like, hey John, come here. I was an all-American wrestler, like, oh, you're good, kid, you're good. But the niggerish things, you know what I'm saying? No disrespect. You want a cutlet or something? You want a chicken cutlet, some veal or something? But you still I'm like, what the fuck? Like, but yeah, so I mean, like, so it's good to see, an Italian come on here, had a conversation with us, had a conversation about Kaz, and he leaned right and he's for reparations. So just let you know that making a good argument, good arguments, that shit count, man. That shit counts. So happy to be here.
And next up, before Mud goes, I want to say this last thing. Most Black people are socially conservative and fiscally liberal. So John probably fits in here better than we'll admit. Like I said, so I'm gonna let Mud go, and then I guess at some point I'm gonna talk about my blondie sisters.
Yeah. Well, all right. So yeah, just to add on, I think that our community it's an interesting mix that I don't think people really highlight. I think our politics has kind of been twisted in a weird way where we had to be a monolith, but if we actually were integrated into the society for real, we would probably go in a lot of different interesting ways. But yeah, John, yeah, that quadrillion, that's amazing. But basically, they call me Mud. You can find me on my socials at Of Lineage, Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse. Yeah, Bit of Dose TV on Actified Press. Let's get to the show.
All right. So y'all know that Saga is my favorite. I will keep my MFs down to a limit because I swear that one episode, Saga, I swear I was channeling like Samuel L. Jackson. No, I think I was channeling Richard Pryor. I feel like he came back for that one. So today's video is Crystal Ball. New data proves universal programs are the best way to close the racial wage gap. So this is the thing that white liberals like to do. They like to use the racial wage gap and the racial wealth gap intertransitionally as if they are the same thing. Now, I'm going to use this as a perfect example, right? Like my great grandmother left me a house. In the last 4 years, my house has probably appreciated somewhere around $75,000, right? Let's just say I have a college degree and I work at an office with a bunch of other people, right? We all make $30 an hour, but none of them had family members who left them houses. My wealth went up $75,000 just off my house. So if I save any money on top of that, I'm doing better than anybody I work with. There's no amount of working that they can do to close that $75,000 that I made just off my house appreciating. Does that make sense? Is that a clear statement, y'all?
Goddamn right it is.
I'm just making sure because sometimes I feel like I just want to make sure that is clear. So that is the difference between wealth and income and wages. Income is what you make on your job. Wealth is what you have left over after all of your debts. So if you have a house but you owe money on it, that's not you. Then that's a debt. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a difference. So if your grandmother left you a house and your parents are going to leave you a house, that's wealth. Plus whatever you accumulate and build for yourself, that's wealth. That's not income. And people don't even understand. A lot of people who are buying homes, their parents are giving them the down payments. So if you don't have a parent who can give you $30,000, $40,000 to put down on a home, how do you get in a home? Okay, sorry. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna start playing the video. I'll be getting so fussy already. We ain't even got in yet. I swear the intros be like 30 minutes. I don't even know why people put up with us, but it is what it is.
No, I said if you edited all your intros into one like super intro, that would be maybe my favorite video on all YouTube, like all Sam's intros, like or something like seriously, you guys know how to start it
one day just for you. Because I'll be talking trash.
I'll call that a handout.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. We have Crystal.
Indeed, we do. We got back-to-back phenomenal panels, Maximilian Alvarez and Henry Rogers. Then we've got Rachel Bovard and Jennifer Holdsworth-Karp. Matt Stoller is going to be in the house to send a warning to the Biden administration about McKinseying their infrastructure package. Of course, Pete Buttigieg in charge of the infrastructure package in some ways, and of course a McKinsey alum. So important warning there. Jed Rothstein on. He's the director of a fascinating film about the collapse of WeWork. But I wanted to start with something that is really, really interesting new analysis from the New York Times. They looked into the black-white wage gap with some new numbers and found that we have basically made no progress since 1950, since the Truman administration. And part of what's going on here is in the typical numbers that do show that wage gap closing, they don't take into account people who aren't working. Mm-hmm. So they don't take into account the zeros on the scale. And you've had declining participation of men across the board, but especially of black men in the workforce, 30% of black men essentially not being counted in these statistics. So when you take everybody into account, you find that black men make basically 51 cents on the dollar of white men. But perhaps even more interesting, as sort of shocking and profound as that is the changes in the wage gap over time and what has actually worked to lessen the wage gap. So I'm going to read from the piece. They say the black-white wage gap shrunk substantially from 19.
Sam, hold on. You see what she just did? Right? She was like, well, black men make 51 cents on the dollar to white men. Then my question is, what do black women make compared to the dollar of a white woman? I mean, what do black women make compared on the dollar to white women? Like,
and can we start counting it? Can we start counting in them salaries that they pay in these black slaves in these prisons? Because if you do that, black men are making way less than 50 cents.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Go ahead. Please elaborate on it, Mud.
Nah, I was just going to say, I wonder if they're including that, or are they just talking about, people who are actually available to the labor market? Like, are you like that's something that really needs to be clarified? Because if you're making like 2 cents, an hour in prison, like, I mean, it will bring down the number drastically. So we need to know if that's included.
Very much so. You got anything, John? If not, we're gonna keep going.
No, well, one thing white people like to do is look into the logic of certain arguments. We have a bit of an infatuation with logical fallacies and like using logic to try to make bad arguments seem better. There's an archetype called the logic bro as well, and I think this show does this a lot. Like these two are logic sister and logic bro, like things that can sound really good, but in terms of the substance of the argument, I don't even want to listen to the rest she said, because the fallacy here is a false cause, right? Presuming that a real or perceived relationship between things means that one is the cause of the other. So even if something like that could be related, you have to add in every other variable, especially in a country like America that's so big. Like no matter what she says, it's still not a relevant, logical thing. So like these days, people don't really like talking logical fallacies anymore, because I think logic is white supremacy. I think that's a new thing. Maybe I think logic and reason is white. So it's into the category. Really? Yeah. Over the summer, like some of these universities came out and saying that like part of whiteness is showing up on time and logic and things. It's just this racial essentialism. Oh, seriously, look this shit up. Yeah, right wingers love using this stuff to make it seem like the woke people are taking over. So some universities.
But listen, when I hear shit like that, the first thing I heard in my head was like, see, woke people this is the shit that goes too fucking far. Like this is why this is why black people are starting to vote Republican. Because y'all are going too far. Like, there's just some stuff that is just dumb. And we're like, yeah, that's dumb.
And it's also not true, because it's logically not true, because I just had a stream on my other channel, because, I talk a lot of India and Pakistan, because I lived in Pakistan for a while. And there's a 14th century poet in Pakistan that talks about the 14 branches of knowledge. And one of branches of knowledge is the knowledge of logic, and another branch is the knowledge of documents and manumission. So it's like, no, logic is not white supremacy. So just like so I don't know what they're trying. I don't know what they're doing.
They don't want people to learn logic because people are dumb.
So
and
that
logic helps you change the way you think.
You could take down a lot of these YouTuber types by just like using logical fallacy. And that's why I like your guys' show, because you use good arguments, but you also bring so much freaking substance and books and documents. And, it's kind of a cheesy term, but lived experience also is actually pretty relevant as well. So logically, I don't even like what she said. So we'll listen, and, I don't know if people know, like I'm a composer, so I think their theme song is pretty shitty. That it's like a guitar loop. It's freaking terrible. Yours is better.
They weren't gonna spend it. That's because Mud did it, and they weren't gonna spend any money on this.
Mud did that track?
Yeah.
You did the beat, Mud?
Mud did the track, and John's on the verse.
Oh yeah. Shit, yeah.
For sure.
The hook is really good.
Thank you. I wanted to say something about that college thing, because that's the shit that like annoys me, because what it is like you have like these very specialized academics, and what they're doing is like they're making all these loose connections, and you're supposed to like read all this subtext into this thing to get to their grand conclusion of like white supremacy, like logic is white supremacy or some goofy shit. Like I can see the argument being like, okay, It's based on, it being developed in the Western world and being, focused in that way, and like that be the argument, yada yada yada, but they never actually go into the context of it. So what you get is these headlines that say, logic is white supremacy, and then we're put in this weird position where we're like, we got to kind of like, because we're arguing against white supremacy, now we got to kind of defend this silly idea.
Not doing it.
Yeah, and it's, and then right wingers look at it and it's like this is an attack on us. So we got to sit here and argue about how stupid this is and make this about Black people, because that's kind of like what the whole point is. And it becomes like this whole fight between us that really is based on some nonsense that doesn't really affect our everyday lives.
And my whole thing is, if everything becomes white supremacy, right, doesn't it it starts to lose its steam, right? It starts to lose its punch. It doesn't mean as much, right? And yeah. I feel like that's where we are. Like, and then,
but see, the thing is that the conversation about like, well, okay, let's fix redlining, that gets lost behind, these little culture war arguments that don't go anywhere.
Well, see, but again, like, yeah. Oh, thank you for dropping it in the chat for us. But sorry, I was gonna say,
yeah, I just dropped it in here. There's a lot in there. I didn't realize it was this bad. It's actually whiteness, rugged individualism is in there, self-reliance, the nuclear family, husband as breadwinner, all this objective, rational thinking, cause and effect, quantitative emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whiteness is different. We'll have to have a whole different discussion on whiteness, because like when you talk about whiteness, because I remember Robin DiAngelo, there was this big stink where she was like, be less white, which was part of her Pepsi thing. But like, when people start talking about whiteness in academia, they are talking about whiteness as in the context of before 1865. Before 1681, there was no category of white. You were Italian, you were Jewish, you were Catholic, you were Protestant, you were British, you were country of origin. That's how you were identified. It wasn't until after Bacon's Rebellion, when a white tenant farmer raised up with poor whites and Black slaves, and they took it to the oligarchs for like a year. They burnt shit down. There was literally a rebellion that went on for almost a year. And after that, that's when they started miscegenation laws. That's when Blacks could no longer marry whites. Because even before then, you could be a Black slave, you could still marry a white woman. It'd just be that your kids would be enslaved until a certain age, and your wife would have to stay with you for blah, 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 blah. Like, it was just one of those things. Like, there's a lot of different laws that they did. But after that, that was the cut. From then on, they were like, no more race mixing. We're going to shut this down. And the reason why they shut it down is because, people were about to burn this motherfucker down because they were tired of the way they were being treated. So when they say whiteness, they're talking about the construct of what has turned into race and class that is now. But you can't just put whiteness on a fucking paper, because you got to explain so much backstory of what you're talking about. Because if not, you sound like you're just on some genocidal shit, like, let's just kill all the white people. That's what it sounds like when you don't explain what you mean by whiteness. So that's what it is.
Hey, you see what Sam and what Mud and what John he said earlier? It's about the thing is like the privilege thing about white people arguing about politics is like, you would just focus on the logical aspects of a certain policy and argue from that standpoint. But when Black people ask for certain things, we got to worry about human nature and aberrations, because even if we come up with the most specific logical argument for shit, it's like, oh well, what about the Negro that's gonna buy a grill with the reparations? But like, what about, we got to think about these things. Like, we got to really think about these things in the argument, be prepared to answer these things. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You should be like, because a white man's gonna sell him that grill. That's stimulating the white economy.
Word up, like, but we got to think about these things. Like, word up, for real though.
It'll take us at least 10 to 20 years to really get some business and infrastructure set up with that money. It's not like we just day one gonna be out here and be like, we free, we can't buy shit. We not buying shit for white people no more. Fuck you, whitey. Fuck you, Consuela. Fuck you, Ying Ying. We're everybody. Fuck everybody. We're not coming in your stores no more. Could you imagine like Black people getting a bunch of money and like, okay, we not We not eating Mexican food no more. We not eating Chinese food no more. We not going to none of these people. Yeah, right.
Yeah. We got to think about see that, but we got to argue this shit while these people just talk about.
You can't get black chicks to stop going in nail shops right now that Asian men have beaten the brakes off of other black chicks in.
That's what I'm saying, for real.
But black people gonna get all this money and separate and not spend none of it with other races. It's insane. It's the dumbest argument ever.
Is it weird having an Asian guy do your toes and stuff? I always wondered, come on, Sam, have you ever, like, does it feel weird at all? Like, he's tickling your toes and everything? Does it like,
you know,
are you into it?
I think over time, right? So, like for us, like, you know, I grew up in the 90s. So we're used to being with certain groups. Like I'm used to going to a beauty supply and it being owned by a Korean or some form of Asian person. Over the years, I've gotten used to going to fish fry spots that are owned by Asians with Mexicans working in the back. Like, but all of this stuff does come into Black communities, right? So we're used to interacting and spending money with you in our communities. That's why I understand why they're like, you guys hate this. How do we hate you when we spend money with you? If we hated you, we would starve you out.
Yeah, you want to know some real shit about this shit is like Chinese stores is all over the fucking hood. Like I remember like real shit. If you watch YouTube, like real shit, a rapper named China Mac, and he went to Philly and shit. He always talking like he always comes to our community. It's like, what's the relationship between Black people and Chinese people? And I ain't gonna lie, this old head from Philly kept it real. He was like, listen, like I go to the store, he behind the glass, I give him money, he give me my food, and that's it. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it's not. He's like, that's always been our relationship with Asian people in our community. It's like, you know what I mean? They got cheap food. They did. We don't try to like, I mean, like if you do try to, you know what I mean? People try to do other things to them. It's really on economic. It's not about racial. It's not really nothing racial about it. Like we support their businesses. Like, yeah. I used to one Chinese store in the hood, buy a fucking, you feel me, try to start up a, let's send the Black kids that send our kids to school. Let's try to send them to China and come together. Or, like, I'm about, I'm this number one guardian going to support the basketball league for the kids that we got a. I've never seen that shit. So I'm like, what the fuck is you? But what do they talk about with this bullshit? You know
we just don't have a relationship with each other outside of us spending, outside of it being economic, right? Outside of us spending money with them. For the most part, we just don't live with each other. We don't. Like, I know how many Asian kids that I have known in my lifetime. And that's the full Asian spectrum, including Indians. So like in childhood, I knew an Indian girl. So she counts as Asian, but like I've probably only really had one or two Asian people really in my life where I've had like multiple conversations but even then, like, no, I had one real good Filipina friend. Like I actually went to her house and met her family. That's different. So it's different. Like when you cool with people and y'all chit chat, it's a whole other thing when you actually get to come to people's families, houses, meet their family, eat their food, and actually get to sit down and be part of that. So like, yeah. So when people like Asian hate, I don't think that's the thing. I think the issue is how certain Asian communities treat Black people. Like for me, I have a very good relationship with the Filipino community. I've been treated very well by Filipino people from multiple classes, from multiple colors, and from multiple classes and from multiple colors. I've been treated very well by them. So I just think it's just how people relate to people in culture. A lot of Asian cultures by default just don't like dark skin. They don't like dark skin for themselves. So they really don't want, I don't know. It's just weird. It's a lot. I don't know. That's a lot. So I feel like we went off on a tangent. Like we should be talking about universal programs. How we start talking about Asians?
No, we do. Fuck that. Talk that shit.
I know, right?
Fuck that. Word up.
No, but I have been watching some really good Asian videos where they're talking about how there's anti-Blackness in their culture and how if we're going to talk about anti-Asian racism, we also have to talk about anti-Blackness in the Asian culture. I think some of those videos have been really good. That's why, we had a discussion if we wanted to talk about it or not. We decided not to, but to be honest, I might start spending more time like boosting some of those videos, because I think that there's people in that community that are doing good work, and it should just be elevated. Because the same way we don't like for other groups to come over and tell us what we're supposed to be doing and what we need to do and what, and at the end of the day, I don't know your history, background, and culture well enough to tell you. I know a little bit. That's how I know anti-Blackness runs, but it's much better when it comes from somebody who's in your culture. So let's move on. Anything else before we go back to this video? Because like I said, we went off on a tangent. I don't even know how we got here, but.
Yeah, I just want to say it's not just the Asians, it's all immigrant groups. Like, it's easy to set up shop in our communities because we can't set up shop in our communities. So
yeah, because they'll give people special loans and everything else. And then we also have to understand every person who comes to this country is not a pauper. Every person who comes to this country does not come here with 25 cents in a handkerchief. This is not the 1920s. Ellis Island is not open. This is not the same immigrant stories. And even back then, there was rich ass immigrants coming too. There was a lot of paupers, but there was a lot of rich ass immigrants who came here who became the elites. So,
another thing that's interesting about those city businesses, I'll tell you from my family perspective as an Italian, my gramps had a pawn shop in Bridgeport. So that's like, it's a Black community and stuff. So another thing about when you get loans and securities in those neighborhoods is that when they get robbed, like eventually, like, or, if they get burned down or whatever, you don't really get much of a loss. Like, it's pretty, like, he would like have the pawn shop and he would say like that place could get robbed dry. It could get anything happen. They could get a rock. It could get burned or anything. And they won't get a loss because there's a lot of really sneaky stuff you can do with the city bankers and stuff. And that's like, that argument was that argument was almost able to be made this summer during the riots. Like, people said, oh, they have insurance. Like, maybe that was the wrong approach, but there is, like, people don't know, like, in the cities, if you get a lot of those deals, like, it is it's like a piece of cake really once you're in there, because even if you lose, you're not going to lose a lot on the property. And that's what a lot of people might not know. Like, so my grandpa,
because Black areas, the property is cheap as shit. You're right about that, especially in certain Black communities, and don't let you have been there for a good amount of time, like how your dad was. Fuck yeah, you right as fuck about that one.
I just wanted to add, just a little vanilla extract here or there.
No, we appreciate you. I appreciate you. And I love that you told people that you're center right wing, because so I feel like some of our aunties and uncles, you'd be like, how can people be right wing? And I'm like, do you listen to these people? They sound sane as fuck. Like, maybe you should focus more on what people are saying and less on how they identify. Okay, let's get back to the boo. All right, here we go.
Shrunk substantially from 1950 to 1980, the Reagan era, take note, and especially during the 1960s. Civil rights laws and a decline in legally sanctioned racism most likely played some role, but the main reasons, according to this researcher, appear to have been trends that benefited all blue-collar workers, like strong unions and a rising minimum wage. Because Black workers were disproportionately in blue-collar jobs, the general rise of incomes for the poor and the middle class shrank the racial wage gap. And this gets to one of my core frustrations in our discourse about racial justice and economic justice. We tend to, and you see this in, the presidential debates and the type of questions that get asked, it's like, okay, now we're going to talk about Black people, and that means we're just going to talk about criminal justice and voting rights, and that's it. When the reality is universal programs like minimum wage hike, like Medicare for all, universal health care, like the PRO Act, and expanding union rights and increasing the unionization rates in this country would do much more in closing the Black wage gap.
So basically, we want to unionize all of these shitty jobs and get them paid $15 an hour so Black people can be still not quite stable poor. Is this what we're talking about?
Yeah.
I'm all for, straightening out the racial wage gap pay, but we still got to talk about this racial wealth gap. But if you guys don't have anything else, or let me know if anybody else has anything else, because we can go further when they start mixing up the two.
Well,
you got
union point is pretty important, just because, I mean, Amazon just had that vote where they didn't want to do the union, and all the people on Twitter and all the narratives are going to be, oh, they're just a bunch of dumb workers. But I think there's a more nuanced argument here that when you do talk a lot of workers on the ground and a lot of jobs, a lot of people don't like unions. And I think there's a rhetoric of it, like where people will just say union and it's like good. But I mean, there is a nuanced argument. There's a lot of these people on the left say union like it's like icing on a cake, when it's really, I think it's more just like, it's like eating breading by the bread of the cake by itself. It's like a thing, but it's like a lot of voters in certain jobs, like Amazon is really good at that, because Amazon can pay people a little bit more than certain. And like in my state, they do offer, like, they'll start them at like, $23 an hour, and they'll give them full benefits. And without a degree, for a lot of people, a lot of people just want that check. So they won't even go into a union vote. So I think there's a fact that a lot of people, they might support unions for certain things, but there's also like public sector unions, which are totally different, which are just basically like shielding bad teachers and stuff. So this idea that union as a word is like a good thing, I always found it fascinating that they threw it in there, just like assuming it's a good thing. Like minimum wage, yeah, I think it's good, but then they're like plus unionization. Well, like maybe not in 2020s. Maybe we should talk about something else. Like if the people in the country are routinely not for this, so why is there such a big gap between this fucking Twitter, YouTube, podcaster like world and common people on the ground? It's fascinating to me, so sorry to dovetail a little bit, but that
was perfect. No, that was perfect. With me, my whole thing is like, they say union, like saying elementary schools are free, but just because it's free doesn't mean they're all good, right? So when you say union, we've seen good unions. The Teamsters back in the day were something serious. Like, no, I know they had, like, everybody has like their bullshit, right? Like, yeah, they had their fraud and the bullshit that they did, but their people made good money, right? Like, their people on the ground made good money. Those people were able to raise families. Their kids were able to go to college and build better lives, right? That's basically what we say that we would want a union to do. But a lot of people who go into these unions, like I said, there's good unions, there's bad unions. A lot of unions are just there for lip service. They're literally, everybody's saying they want one thing and the union is like, no, we'll settle for this. So it's not even like you're getting what you want. So it feels kind of like regular politics, right? Like you're sitting there, you're saying you want one thing, but you're not getting it. So with me, I'm hit or miss on unions because, like I said, for Black people, unions have always kind of been like whatever. And when the best gains were made by unions, like for the most part, they pushed us out. And then when she talks about the Reagan era, yeah, by the 80s, like that industrial shit, those jobs were gone. That shit was a wrap. So, like,
I mean, I definitely agree about this union stuff. I mean, I'm generally pro-union, but
me too. But not everyone is good.
Yeah, a lot of people that are just like have this blind faith in unions being like a solution are people who never actually been in unions. Like a lot of what you're saying, Sam, is the absolute truth. You're in a union and you feel like no one is actually fighting for you. You just got this entity that's taking some money out of your check every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and if that's the way you're feeling about your union, obviously you're not going to be like, gung-ho about this shit. Like, you're not just going to be like, oh, we need to keep this union alive, because you're thinking, well, what exactly is this doing for me?
Exactly. And then we're not talking about the fact that Amazon is a multi-billion-dollar company with infinite amounts of money and resources. So it's not like if they decide to unionize that they couldn't have shut that plant down and moved somewhere else. Like, let's keep it a buck. And think about all those people down there who didn't have those jobs before Amazon came, that, like you said, are now making $15 to $20 something an hour. $15, $18 an hour in Alabama? Where was that place at? It was down south. $15, $18 an hour down south somewhere, some money.
That's true.
Compared to that's not $15 an hour in LA or New York. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I would like to unionize and get health care and get more money. But if they shut down this plant, how do I feed my baby? And I'm not saying that people shouldn't take those kind of risks, but I'm saying it's easy for you, a person who's not in that situation, in that moment, to say, oh, well, they should have just did this. Well, that's easy for you to say, but were you going to send those workers money if they had to strike or do whatever they had to do to get that union? Were you guys going to send money down to those families when they shut that plant down? So we have to think about how we talk about people in these areas and how we talk about people when they do not to choose not to form unions. Because it's like you said, it's multifaceted. There's so many different things that come along with that.
And I support unions as a general idea, but I got problems with unions because one, Black people that's in unions is often not in leadership positions, and two, the unions have become so fucking bloated, so much politics within the unions. Like, only thing a union is good for nowadays, like a union is good for, is like job security. Like,
that's it.
Yeah.
You join the union doesn't necessarily mean that you feel me, get that middle class lifestyle and protections, because they playing politics, right? Strengthen the union. You feel me? Like the whole politics, the whole bureaucracy. It's bureaucracy in the union when the union is supposed to be, you know what I mean? Less bureaucracy is supposed to be a more democratic thing. But you know, like that's my whole thing with unions. That's my whole issue with them. Like it's just for job security. I know people the people that's in unions, my people that's in unions, they never gonna lose their fucking job. You got to feel me? Like, but they live in the hood. You know what I mean? Like, but they work 80 hours. I mean, like they got unlimited hours. It's not pushing them into the middle class. It's not lifting them out. And often the union stewards and union leaders is not even from the community. Like, so that's my issue with the modern day unions.
So like for me, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mud. Please go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, even in 2021, you know, we're not, like Sam said, we're not talking about unions back in the day. Unions are like losing their power. And for the most part, all they're going to do for you is negotiate, losing just a little bit less than what you would have lost if there wasn't a union.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to have this, like what they're talking about right now, and probably every union across the country is about you losing a little bit of your healthcare, or having to pay more for your healthcare, or having to take a cut on your wages, or you know, you're not going to get like a cost of living increase or something like that with your union. That's what they're negotiating right now.
Very true. All right, I'm gonna let them go some more.
Almost any of the other of the policies that are typically discussed.
Yeah, I've talked about this a lot here. One of my favorite studies on this is from Matt Brunig at the People's Policy Project, where he talks about how the white-black wealth gap, and this is why looking at things by race isn't always necessarily the best way to do it, is almost entirely a difference in the wage gap between...
I want to run back just a little bit, because see how he switched from wage gap to wealth gap, and Sagar does this shit all the time. I catch him. Like, I don't miss shit.
Yeah, I've talked about this a lot here. One of my favorite studies on this is from Matt Brunig at the People's Policy Project, where he talks about how the white-black wealth gap, and this is why looking at things by race isn't always necessarily the best way to do it, is almost entirely a difference in the wage gap between the top 10% of whites and the top 10% of blacks. And with...
Let's see, shall we? Because Sagar is full of shit, and that is bullshit. So give me a second to pull up this chart. Let me see if I have easy access. Go ahead, John.
I'm about to just say that Sagar is really, he's a white dude. Like, to me, like he's an upper middle class, weird kind of liberal, right wing, anti-black. Like, it's feel me, like, but he's like an upper middle class kind of business white dude and shit. With a Clark Kent haircut. He look like a brown Superman. Like, it's crazy. Like, and like they often bring him on like real shit as the face of the person of color to talk shit about black people. Like, I mean, like we can talk about Saga all day. Like, but this is what he does though. Go ahead, sis.
No, I'm still pulling up this thing. I might have to pull it up on my on my laptop, but I would rather do it on the computer so I don't show y'all something y'all don't need to see.
Like, what's going on with Saga? Like, you know more than us, bro.
Yeah, this is the thing. And if anybody ends up clicking my podcast, like we're moving on now to like we're gonna do reparations episodes, but most of what I've been doing the past couple months, I've been talking about like the Hindu nationalism in India because it's actually a pretty major deal. It's I care a lot about like Islamophobia and stuff. Like just had a lot of friends in the wars and stuff. So I really got into Islam for a lot of the 2000s. So India is very Islamophobic. There's a lot of nationalism going there, and the diaspora sends a lot of money. India is the number one country recipient of remittances. It's funny. A lot of the reparations arguments sometimes will mention that, like a lot of this money goes out of the country. So India gets multiple billions of dollars, and America has the highest earning Indian demographic of the diaspora in the world. So like what happened in the 1970s is that I'm speaking, I have a podcast, I've interviewed a lot of people. I'm not like an India expert, but I'll definitely give you my take. Like there's religion, there's culture, but there's caste and is really unique. And people have really liked, especially, I don't like Isabel Wilkerson's book. I mean, it's cool, but like a lot of people try to insert caste. I like the concept, but a lot of people like to insert caste into the American perspective. And like, they've been doing it for a long time in sociology. I definitely get what they're trying to do, but it is a very deep thing in India. It's not as like it's a 1,000-year thing. So it's almost very difficult to impose it. But like, so what happened in the 1970s is their prime minister, basically she declared an emergency, which meant like martial law, civil rights. Like this is like, third world nation went through a lot of shit in the 60s and 70s, just coming out of colonialism, trying to build a country. And the West is sitting there like, haha, what are you doing? Like what, like at any moment they're ready to write an article about how India is fucking up. So like they had some riots and stuff. So she was known as the Iron Woman. She was kind of a socialisty third world leader. It was very popular in the time, that a third wave Africa-India partnership during the Cold War. Very interesting history. We don't, South Asia, very interesting region. They really did a beautiful democracy there. But in the 70s, she had to declare martial law for a couple of years. So basically, most of the upper caste, which would suffer most from the martial law, they fled over to America. So because of that, now I don't want this to come off like the wrong way, but you could look this up yourself. Because of this, I'm not trying to generalize. Most Indian Americans in America are part of that upper caste clue. And the ones that you see now are the second generation that came in the 70s. So these 70s upper caste people came with insane amounts of wealth, because after India declared independence, it didn't go the way of China, like land reform and giving land. It didn't go the way of certain African nations, like more of a, I would maybe authoritarian rule. It went towards a democratic deal, and Prime Minister Nehru made a deal with the upper caste, with the landowners, with the wealthy. So, the peasants didn't really. That's why people in India, still 2/3 of them are living on $2 a day. So it's like the upper caste got out really well. So for 30 years, they were all right. So in the 1970s, all the upper caste really came to America, most of them, Canada, things like that. So their kids are now Sagar's age. So I don't want to generalize, but I'm just telling you, a lot of these commentators you see, Zaid Jilani, Sagar, and Jetty, again, don't take this the wrong way. A lot of the Indian commentators you see, they're not representative of what a Dalit would be in America, which in the 70s, the Dalit Panthers were a thing in India. They were with the Black Panthers. So the Dalit and the Black struggle, a Dalit is an oppressed Indian, a Dalit, which is a low caste Indian, an untouchable, but what you see in America is mostly upper caste. You can tell, like, you guys know light skin versus, like, there's a skin element there, but there's also a last name. His last name in Jetty is a very upper caste name. Indians will know this. So there's a lot going on there and Americans, what I found in my podcast covering this, Americans really don't know any of this. The past 20 years, we've been really focusing on bombing the Middle East. I get it. But we're starting to learn about China now. But, there's a lot of culture in the subcontinent. So I'm glad I've been able to talk about that. I respect, the country and the culture of India and Pakistan. It's a really fascinating place as a revolutionary nation. It doesn't really get a lot of credit. And it's and there's 1.5 billion people in the country, and they pulled it off, thousands of languages. Like, you talk about multiculturalism, and, they, a lot of those indentured servants came in Latin America as well. And, when the Britain freed the black slaves in the 1830s, right? Because they were too revolutionary. So they brought over the docile Indians. So, I mean, the Indians were basically slaves in Latin America. So, I mean, these those were the Indians we want to talk about, the Dalits, you know, those are, but what mostly gets platformed in America and who writes the articles and stuff are upper caste India. And the Hindu America Foundation, which is their big advocacy group, they're basically an upper caste group and they defend the nationalist government in India. So there's a lot of weird things. If you guys listening have any Indian friends or stuff, you could ask them about Hindu nationalism. They'll probably give you a multi-hour rant as well, because it's very deep and it's very, and the diaspora is very powerful. So I wouldn't trust a lot of what he has to say on race and stuff, because the upper caste of India really is, it's an oppressor. It's an oppressive group. I mean, it's 1,000-year oppressive group. And like white people, like myself, there's a lot of kind of that white fragility, white guilt. When you ask them about the caste system, the retort will be to blame the British, you know, blame colonialism. There is an argument there, blame the Muslims. A lot of them will say like caste doesn't exist. None of this is so. Like white people, like the plantation owners after Civil War, they would, you know, deflect and things like this. So I think a lot of people see brown and they think oppressed, but they don't realize that like Cubans and Haitians are different. You know, like upper caste Indians are very different from Dalits. And if more people saw them as an oppressed group, but as a white person, this is a very difficult conversation for me to have. I'm trying to word it so carefully. My heart's racing. I'm walking on eggshells because commenting,
shit, man.
Commenting on a brown, it's just weird now, man. It's weird. So that's the end of my rant. I hope it helped a little bit, but
no, I think that was very informative.
I tried, yeah.
So thank you.
Appreciate that, man.
So this is why I hate Shaggy, as John C. likes to call him. So this is the bullshit ass chart that Matt Brunig did that he likes to use. So if you look at this chart, you would think, oh, well, Black wealth and white wealth is exactly the same. But the top chart that is white people is splitting $1 trillion at every fucking decile. A minimum. Whereas Black people, so white people have 100 trillion, right? 100 trillion. That's the top, 100 trillion. We have 300 billion. So even though this graph looks just alike, we're not sharing the same pool of money. So if you actually shift these graphs and put them side by side, my graph is done from the quintiles because it's from one of Darity's reports, which is running the numbers on closing the racial wealth gap. Come on, I need to close this one so I can pull up the one I want. Give me a second. I'm about to close out this other one. I'm about to pull up the quintile one, so it's only going to be 5 lines, but it's much easier. And then I'm going to pull them up side by side because I'm obnoxious. So this is the real numbers. So yes, poor Blacks and poor whites do have bullshit in the lower numbers. Oh, this isn't the right chart. Is this my full chart? No, this is my full chart. Yeah. Why do I only have 3 things here, though? I don't like this one. Oh, that's why. Okay. So look. Yeah. So first one, white people, negative 11,760. Black people, negative 25,622. Yes, we're both negative, but you still have less debt. So, but hey, I am all for fixing and getting everybody right here the hell up out of there. We're not going to call it reparations though, but you're going to need to give me my reparations first. Next, second quintile. So this is where Sagar's saying that it's relatively the same at every decile. So if that's the case, if you have 51 grand, I want you to trade me for 2,300. So Black people got 2,300 and white families in the second quintile have a little over $51,000, right? Let's move on to the third quintile. White families have over $171,000, damn near 172. Black families are a little under 20,000. So this is the wealth gap. I don't know what Sagar is talking about when he says it's just the top 10% of families. That is a bull-faced fucking lie. And then look, fourth quintile. 438,807. So they're like 440,000. And then Black families, 76,000. That is the difference between you being able to pay your kids going to college, giving your kids money to start a business. This is the difference between you owning your home and you not. Like all of these things. And then you get to the top. White families, top white families, $4 million. Black families, 618,000. That's in the top quintile. So Sagar's trying to say that this is the only gap. But for those of you who have eyes and can see, I'm seeing that you understand that Sagar's full of shit. So hold on, I'm actually pull up my other charts though, because I like them because they're even, they're more, they're more detailed. Because like I said, I'm petty. I'm a Gemini and we're petty fucking people. Super fucking petty.
That is fascinating.
So my nerves.
Where's he coming from? That's fucked up. Like what I'm trying to figure out how, like, what is the rationale for just like planning the show and then like putting that point on the paper? Like, oh, we're going to shout this out like it's a big one-liner, because the way you broke it down is that's a fucking bold-faced lie on a major show. Like, what is the...
It's propaganda. And then I get into fights with white people who will tell me that Black people and white people have the same amount of money. And it's just like, no, but we don't. So here are the lower number ones for the quintiles, right? So look, so you can actually just see the graphs larger. Hold on, I'm about to pull this up on the screen.
Well, let me respond to John real quick. Let me respond to John real quick. So
yeah, please do.
Yeah, the whole thing with all this comes from Matt Bruenig. And what Matt Bruenig is trying to do is undercut the reparations movement. And I don't want to be I don't want to sound conspiratorial like that, but I think what happened is that he did the research for this, and what they usually have been doing is they use the Black issue as the forefront of the problem to sell their universal solution. Mm-hmm. And then when he saw that people like Dr. Darity were using this information to make the argument for reparations, what he did is he kind of had this idea to basically use these graphs that make it look like it's all the same thing, because it's just like the top 1%, the top percentile looks like they're doing so much better than the people at the bottom. And because he was able to make the graph look like that, he just pushed this idea out there that it's all the same issue. The problem is the rich people among us, and we just need to do wealth redistribution to solve all of these problems. So that's what they're doing. It's propaganda to be like, we're not going to deal with this race issue at all. We're going to either argue it from the socialist perspective, or we're going to argue it from the other perspective, which is, Sagar. He's not talking about wealth redistribution. He's just saying we're not going to do anything at all, pretty much.
Exactly. So here's the other chart. Like I said, this is the blown up. So these are the bottom quintile. Sorry, it says percentile. I never got around to changing it. But these are the bottom quintile. So that's 1, 2, and 3, the bottom ones. So again, like I said, you can see the difference. Like, yes, in the bottom, whites and Blacks are both in the negative, but we still are further in debt. And people are like, but we're both negative. Yeah, but come on, let's be honest. Would you rather be down? Would you rather owe 12 grand or 26 grand? Like, let's not play these games. Like, we care when it comes to debt too. So, and then like I said, you look at the numbers here, you can look at the graphs. At every level, white families have more money. So this has to be done. Like, you changing and giving everybody the same wage does not change this chart. And that is my issue, because Crystal and Saga keep trying to say that if I give every Black, white, Asian, Latino, and everybody the same wage at the same job, and we give people $15 an hour, that's going to make these numbers become the same. That doesn't even make sense, because people who are in the 4th and 5th percentile, their kids aren't making $15 an hour.
Exactly.
So let me pull up this last chart so you can see how astronomical the two are in between, and then we can get back to the video. But I just get so irritated when Sagar does. And I'm so tired of Sagar doing this shit, because it's like the 3rd fucking time he's said this shit. And we call him out every fucking time. Like, we fucking see you. You better be glad that we're a small ass platform, but we fucking see y'all. Like, y'all are on some bullshit and you're pushing like propaganda, but you want to sit here and talk about Fox News and CNN, but y'all doing the same shit. And that's why I don't fucking respect you. Okay.
There is this thing with the Republicans now, right? They're trying, and that's what they're trying to do on like Clubhouse too. Like they're trying to bridge this. I guess I don't know if it's populism. The Republicans are trying to do this post-Trump, like we weren't never Trumpers. Like we did support Trump, but we didn't go to the riot. But hey, can we just hang out with the liberals because Biden is kind of a conservative? There's this weird thing that some Republicans are like I told you I'm kind of center right, but I've basically always voted for Democrat president my whole life. But like locally in state, I vote Republican. So like I'm lucky to have like Trump just being a fucking idiot. And like Republicans post 70s have always just been kind of terrible. So it's like most of my family and, you know, we'll always, a lot of the old Italians vote Democrat and stuff like that. But like, not that we like Democrat and stuff like that, but it's like the post-Trump Republicans, some of them are so funny. Like everybody knows Sagar's a Trumper. So like a lot of the Trumpers are now trying to become these working class UBI healthcare people. They're trying to like just kind of completely jump over the bridge. And I'm like, okay, is that conservative? Is it libertarian? And then like the crypto guys will show up in those same rooms still. It's like the Republicans are just really lost. I mean, I think the reparations could be something that could kind of galvanize the party again, but they're trying to slip into like this liberal circle. So Sagar, he feels kind of out of place what he's trying to do as the conservative of the show. But you could tell the Republicans are trying to do this. They're trying to like, you know, get a little bit of that, some liberal crumbs, you know, to try to redeem themselves or something. That maybe is just my take.
No,
they're trying to go with third party. Like this is what they're trying to like. They're trying to create a third like group that is like the socialist, like left type of people mixed in with the conservatives, and it's like it's going to be based on we're doing it for, you know, working class people. That whole populist thing. That's what they're trying to do. I don't know if it's a thing where they're trying to shift these people over to the Republican Party and go that route, just take over the Republican Party and be, you know, the people that are you know, take the place of the Trumpers and the birthers, you know? Like, I don't know if that's what they're trying to do or if they really want to like go legitimate, like we're the People's Party type thing. I don't know. But that's what the game plan is.
You mean the White People's Party? I still can't with them. I can't
Nick
with them.
Word up. White people, I mean, everybody needs to get together and get health. Yeah. You know how they do. But like,
I can't respect you. Like, it's 2021. You just still don't have reparations on your platform and you want Black people to be a part of your coalition? No.
But Sam, you know why though?
Oh, but
Sam,
you have to vote it in.
You know why?
You got to be voted in.
Hey, Sam, because we the masters at the thing about it, like all these people that's non-Black on all sides of the aisle, they not used to being in political wars of attrition. Like this is what we do. Like real shit, we trench down, we fight, lose a yard, gain a yard. So everybody knows how in century how important it is to try to get Black people on your side. Like, and not only that, because you know wars is won by winning their hearts and minds. So using our story to push whatever the fuck you want to do is important too, because you already know our story is so deep that using that, whether you want to do some Richard Nixon shit where he wanted the UBI, where it comes like down to like if you make under the poverty level, under the certain kind of threshold, then your tax return would be like $30,000 or some shit, like some type of UBI shit like that, or whether it would be a universal program. All these things are going to take a massive amount of political energy. And they know that they need us, like both sides, all sides need us. They need us.
And that's why they should pay us.
Yeah, I know, exactly. That my whole thing is like, yo,
I am for sale. Black people are the biggest whores in the country. We the brokest, we the biggest whores. Y'all might as well just come out here and cash app us and send us on our way. Cash app us, leave a nice note on the nightstand and tell us to get the fuck on. That's it. And then from there, y'all, we can fight for justice for the country. But until, like I said, until you do right by us, I'm on my fucking color purple shit. This motherfucker can keep crumbling.
Do right by me. Yeah. For real. And they want us to fight two fucking political wars on two fronts. Like, they're trying to convince us to stop this war we've been fighting for so long, turn around and support. You feel me? Like, real shit, like, stop fighting your real enemy.
They want us to fight every war. They want us to fight for immigration. They want us to fight for UBI. They want us to fight for universal health care. They want us to put reparations to the back burner. It's like, yo, no. Y'all fight for your stuff. We gonna fight for our stuff. If you want to include our stuff, we can fight together. But if you're not talking about what I care about, I don't give a fuck.
Exactly.
I got jumped. So this chart has just been sitting here up. So I know y'all see it. So this is the fourth quintile, 438 to fucking 76,000. I don't see anywhere, anyhow, how this money looks any way the same. Y'all don't even live in the same neighborhoods. Fourth quintile, y'all don't even live in the same neighborhoods. Like somebody who's worth $76,000 does not have the money to live next to somebody who's worth $438,000. Like, come on. So like, let's quit playing these games. And this is why I get irritated when y'all be like, well, universal programs, but you're not talking about doing any universal programs that fix that actually does something for the people on the bottom. Like, you know, I still want reparations, but if we were sitting down having a real conversation about these people who are at the bottom of the spectrum and saying, okay, so how do we get these people down here, like not just the negative, because I think we should be going further than just the first fucking percentile, but like, how do we do, God damn it, I pulled the wrong one, or at least the wrong one came up. Sorry, hold on. Give me a second. That's why I'm trying to have stuff pulled up. You can tell I have not been on my computer. That's what happens when you go on vacation for a month. Come home, can't find nothing. It's this one.
Doing great. Being behind the Reset Race studio is pretty badass, I have to say. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, I feel like we've been pretty good today.
I like it.
I feel like we've been pretty good today.
I like it.
I feel like I've been relatively tame.
Sam, you been Sam been not real. Sam, she a little tame. Like I think when the video goes on, she won't. But she been kind of tame though. I know a lot of people like, wow, this is her tame. Yeah, this is her tame.
Yeah, that's me tame. So yeah, so I just want to, but like, so when they talk about doing wealth redistribution, right? But they never say like, how are we going to do wealth redistribution? They always talk about free college, housing vouchers. What's the other fucking thing? That's it, right? And baby bonds, right? So
nah, they don't even talk about baby bonds like that. Like Cory Booker was the only one that went for it.
Yeah, and then that shit died, right? So my whole thing is like, okay, so how does free college help these people who are in the negative? Like, you still got to work when you go to college. You still got debts. Most people drop out of college because they got other bills and other debts they got to take care of, or they have other survival shit going on. So how does free college help that? Like so my whole thing is you're not even talking about shit to get white people out of poverty. If you would focus on getting we're just going to focus on poor people of all races. If you just fucking did that, a lot of Black people would get slapped in the face with a trickle. You understand what I'm saying? Like, let's just start there. And then at least you would give people a starting point to start fighting for. But you keep talking about how we should just do universal programs and free college. But we have all these fucking reports that show that umbrellas don't make it rain. Free college does not move you into another tier of society. It doesn't automatically do that for you. A lot of it still has to fucking do with your network. All right, let me stop. Anything else? Y'all got anything else? I think we gotta get back to this video. These folks.
Yeah, let's get back to the video.
Damn, we still got like 5 minutes.
Welcome to Reset Race, John. You gonna be on here for 4 hours.
That's what on our show for.
Wage gap between the top 10% of whites and the top 10% of blacks. And within both of those, within white wealth and black wealth, 75% of wealth amongst whites is held by the top 10%. 75% of blacks is held by the top 10%. And the wealth...
To be in the top 5% of Black people, you need $350,000. To be in the top 10% of Black people, you need like $100K. Show me somebody who's in the white top 10% who has $100K. I know I still got that picture. I'm pulling it up just so I can steal the graph because I'm not going to use the graph no more because I don't like them. But I will look at it. Give me a second. look at something real quick. But where's the white elite one? Here it is. Okay, so average white people are worth $110,000. So an average white person is worth $110,000. I guess I could share the screen, but yeah. So average. So our top 10% is white average. So what is Sagar talking about? Like, you can look at this. Average white families worth $110,000, right? Average. So over 42 million white families, right? So for Black families, like I said, $110,000 puts you in the top 10%. $350,000 puts you in the top 5%. So 500,000 is good. That's over 20 million families. Look, elite families, 1.2 million, over 13 million families. We don't have people in these 500,000, 1.26 million. It's like a handful of people. It's like throwing like thousands of people, not millions, thousands. So miss me with this, we all have the same money, because we don't. And if you want to talk about it, y'all got the money. Because we can pull up that chart before we finish, but I'm gonna let them finish, because I want to pull up the chart where we show how Asians got all the money. They got more money than white folk.
Well, yeah, the Indian Americans are far at the top. I mean, and the next group is
have more money.
And second group is significantly lower. I mean, Indian Americans have really figured it out in a way that, like, as an Italian, I thought that we were the big schemers and stuff. I have to say, the way that Indian Americans have figured it out, like, in my town, I see how they do it. You bring a few, like, if you have 6 people that all have $8,000, you have a down payment for your gas station right there. Gas 10 years later, you have 2, 3, then when one generation, it turns into a hotel. So the way they pull it off, it's very noble. It's very American, but like they're using the system, but they have to have that, you have this endless family. So it's, come over and like,
and seed capital. Let's not pretend like there isn't some money that comes over. And even
they get jobs very easily too. They come over and they get jobs.
Yeah, if you come over as a pauper, right? If you have a family member who already has a home and they can hook you up with a job, and then there's 6 of you, and like you said, $8,000 amongst 6 people is what, 2 months of work?
Yeah, people always talk about the immigrant miracle in America, but it's not. It's a family. It's not like the immigrant miracle of America. It's always this story of like families. It's like a closed society kind of thing. That I remember in the 90s, like, you go to New York, like the Jews would actually have their own ambulances and stuff. You walk around like, what's going on here? But like, you don't even bat an eye at stuff like that. But like, that's more of what, or like the Polish, meat store or something. That's more of like the immigrant experience. It's not to come over and they work their way up the ladder. No, they stayed in their own communities in some real fucked up situations and figured out how to game things as much as they can and pool a couple $100,000, $100 here, a couple thousand up here to build something, build another thing, get another shitty shop here, another shop here, get a whole, that's like, but the Americans have been able to pull it off. Maybe because of their numbers or something, but they really able to pull off that immigrant miracle really fast. And I'm not saying that negatively.
They're being targeted through certain visa programs as well. So
those H-1B ones and stuff.
And if you get a bunch of your family members to move over here and y'all live in a shitty ass place for $14 an hour for 2-3 months, you get a nice house. Boop, 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 boop.
But it's all truth.
For those of y'all thinking, hey, Black people, why don't you do that? We did that, and white people bombed that shit. So why don't we do it again in 2021? Because it's 2021 and we want our reparations because you fuckers kept burning our shit down. If you would have left us alone, we wouldn't want shit from you right now.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know about all that. I'm still, the reparations bag still needs to come because
No. I said I want my reparations. I said if they would have left us the fuck alone, we wouldn't need shit.
That's true. Yeah, I think
think about it. If they would have left us alone after slavery, even though they didn't give a shit, if they would have just left us the fuck alone, we would have way more than we do right now.
Yeah, definitely, we would have been integrated into the society somehow, like
other immigrant groups.
Yeah, like you have a Chinatown, you would have a Black American town.
Imagine all the people around this fucking planet that would come to like Black America Town, like the authentic jazz food, like all these kind of essentialist things. Like, imagine how much money these towns would bring in. Oh my God. The clothing and everything, all this culture, like this K-pop shit they're trying to appropriate. Like, come to America to buy that shit. 12% taxes. Hell yeah, baby. You know, like imagine that. That's a great point, Mud. That's a great point, dude.
It would be like
white people say, sorry, I said dude. I'm sorry, you can cut that out. Sorry, man. Sorry, you know. Fuck dude.
You support us getting 64 quadrillion. You good, bro. You good. Yeah. Man. You good at research.
I mean, it would be essentially like, you know, there being 100 or 1,000 Harlems during the Harlem Renaissance. Like, that's kind of how it would be, except that we would actually be profiting off of all those things that we were creating. Like, you know, that's it.
That's it.
That's what gets the Republicans on board, or whatever, right, conservative or whatever. That's, you know, even that argument is tough for the liberal these days. I think that the idea of building a kind of self-reliant success like that, I don't think that there's a big appetite for that.
Well, not for white people, for us to do it. Black people talk about the shit all the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in the patrician white community,
the ledge and shit. Like, they ready to take over 4 states.
Word up. You know what?
Let me stop. I'm gonna have people in the comments talking shit.
No, you had that guy on last week, Cash. I see him on Clubhouse all the time. But he came out for he's a black nationalist. He came out for the separate nation. I said, oh, I didn't know Cash was for a separate nation. That's cool.
You know, listen. So I'm one of those integrated Negroes. I grew up with white people, and like I said in that episode, white people would kill us all before they let us leave. White people are your abusive husband, your abusive ex-husband, who has a whole new wife, who he thinks is prettier than you and who he likes better, but he still don't want you to go nowhere. And if you try to leave, he will fuck your shit up and burn everything down. That is white America. They let us go nowhere. They won't be able to steal no more dances, no more. Our food is the best. Our culture is the best. Like, what is American culture without Black culture? I watch all these commercials. All I see is white people doing a bunch of Black culture all the time, everywhere. Even when there's no Black people present, there are white people doing Black culture. So we in this, like, we're as American as apple pie. So I understand people like, oh, separatists, Okay, where are you going? Because I've looked at being an expat, but it don't look great everywhere. And you don't necessarily know the shit that's going to happen when you move other places. You want to move to some of these third world countries, you got to worry about getting robbed. You got to worry about getting scammed. You got to worry about all kinds of shit. Like, you got to have extra bread. So when you get robbed or when some scam shit happen, you got money to cough up that bread when you don't get it back. Because in America, you know, if somebody rob you or you get scammed, you don't always get that shit back. You ain't always got insurance. It's a different kind of deal. So
the whole thing is like the whole thing is like, why the fuck would you move from one fucked up situation in the richest country in the world to a more fucked up situation? You know what I mean? Like people that other countries that got better situations for us don't want us to come there. Like, you can't even go there. So we gotta stay here and fight where we at. And that's just the reality of it. You know?
Here's the thing with the Black nationalists. They're essentially talking about having a few states and, you know, having their own separate nation and all that. But the reality is, as soon as you have Black America Town, start having a few of those, a lot of those people are just going to go to Black America Town, and that's going to be it. That's going to be.
I've wanted my own town for like the past decade. It's one of my legacy goals. And so I think plenty of people go run off and build something at the end of the day. No, so like, that's my thing. Like, if we get reparations, if you want to live around Black people, you can live around Black people. If you want to live in a mixed place, you want to live in a mixed place. But let me tell you, when we start fixing up these neighborhoods and they look good, you think some of these folks ain't gonna want to come and live next to us? Because some of us will still sell and leave. They're not gonna be able to push us out the way they used to through the gentrification. They're actually gonna want to come in and live with us because we're gonna have some money.
And that's when you're gonna make some real money off of your house.
Yes.
That's when you're gonna really make, like, you're gonna buy your house at like 300,000, and then you're gonna be able to sell it for $1.5 million.
Exactly. No, it matters. It matters how the neighborhood changes, right? So my grandmother owns a house in Inglewood, right, which is where they put the new stadium. So my grandmother's house has appreciated over like $200,000 in a very short period of time, all because of that stadium. Why? Because whites and Asians are starting to move into the neighborhood. So you got the stadium, you got all the stuff they're about to build around the stadium, plus the fact that whites and Asians are moving in the neighborhood. So just through the slight demographic change and the fact that they know what's coming, that whole neighborhood has appreciated to a certain level. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, if we actually get some money and people aren't running from us in our neighbor, yeah, of course. Because if we have enough money, all these nice grocery stores and everything else that don't like to come in Black neighborhoods because we poor, they're going to come to our neighborhoods.
Exactly.
And not everybody's going to want to open and start a ma and pa shop. You know, some people will, because, you know, some people, that's their dream. Like some people have always wanted a store or a boutique or a grocery store. Like there are going to be like little aberrations, but for the most part, we're still going to end up spending money with society.
Straight up.
But not at the detriment to us, but we're not going to be being exploited no more. You know what I mean?
It's
like,
different. No,
it's different.
It's a difference. Yeah, no, there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because we'll have businesses that we can actually make money too. So it's not like we'll just strictly be consumers. Because you got to think, if we get reparations, most of the people who already have bread, a lot of them will use that to go and start businesses. And then for people on the lower tiers, that helps stabilize them. And if they actually ever do shit for the country and actually do wealth redistribution, then we can really get something going. But let's get further through this because we are terrible at getting through these videos.
Gap is largely between like a Jeff Bezos and like whoever a Black billionaire, whoever like the clothing guy is. I can't remember his name here. But it's important to remember there where if you look at the bottom deciles and you start to go down in the 90th percentile, the 80th.
He said
what?
He said
what
that
an ass,
he said that the main gap is just between Jeff Bezos and some random Black billionaire.
He said
the clothing
Jeff Bezos
guy.
and P. Diddy or FUBU. He said some shit like that.
Was he talking about Diddy? I didn't know.
He talking about Diddy or FUBU, Sean John or FUBU or some shit like that.
Damon John, yeah. He watches Shark Tank at night, I guess. He watches. So I have to dance on eggshells to not say that all the Indians in America are rich upper caste, but he can just go say, "Oh, the Black FUBU guy." Like,
yeah.
Remember on CNN when they had who was on there? Was it like Montel Williams or someone? And the white CNN guy like mixed them up for Samuel L. Jackson or something, and he just got ripped apart and stuff like that. But this guy won't do it because he's got the BIPOC card, you know. So like,
yes, I like calling it WEPOC, but yes.
So it's like I can't. That's fucking offensive. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You guys probably hear this stuff like all day, every day. So like you know the white, you get all outraged and stuff. But like fucking, that's offensive. That's very. The fashion guy. It's like that's a real kind of ass statement. But they could get away with that shit.
Yes, because they get the people of color card. But people don't understand people of color are racist as fuck in their own countries. Like, do a Google search.
But see, the other part that's offensive is like he's comparing Jeff Bezos' money to like just some random billionaire like that. Like those things are comparable. It's just like Jeff Bezos has the most money on the fucking planet, right? Like how are we just comparing them to any billionaire?
To Oprah and her like $4 billion.
Yeah, like the shit is crazy.
Oprah and Bezos are on the same level. It's goofy.
It does say a lot about the society that like you go to any person on the street and you like in any country, you ask them like who are the big American billionaires, and like everybody will know Bezos and stuff. But even if you ask any American like who's the richest Black person, like maybe someone will say Oprah, maybe it'll be like LeBron or they'll have that reaction, you know, because the culture is so fucking clueless. I don't know. Do you guys know? I don't know. It's like it's not part of the zeitgeist for us to instantly have those Black examples, but I guarantee you know, he'll have a comment. He probably will have another clip tomorrow about DMX. He'll say some shit or something like that. Like they'll have that, but like, you know, who is the richest black person in America? Is it the founder of, I don't know. It's like these questions, but it's like, that says a lot about the society, doesn't it? Jeff Bezos was quick. And then when he started saying black, did you see his face? He's like, his face started contorting. If you watch the video,
his hood starts coming out.
I may be psychoanalyzing a little bit. Sorry,
I keep joking that I'm gonna learn how to do an effect, After Effects, and have like a hood dancing around him, trying to get on his head, like in Harry Potter, but like a Klan hood.
Sam, you are fucking.
We see Sagar.
But now but Joe, time out. I just want to say one thing. The whole thing is that they trying to argue that focusing on like race specific policies to undo harm to specific groups of people or basically us. Like, now they don't do it with other people. They do it with us. Basically saying like real shit. This be playing into the games of the oligarchs. Like, you think that oligarchs, American oligarchs, first of all, you think majority of American we don't really got no Negro American oligarchs like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you think that American oligarchs want, you feel me, the most oppressed, most economically deprived, I'm talking about historically for centuries and generations to have economic, political, and social power. You think that oligarchs want that? So I feel like fighting for reparations, this is the best thing. Be fighting the oligarchs for real. You feel me, like real shit, like they playing checkers, they playing chess. I don't play chess. I ain't gonna lie, you can beat me in chess. I'm playing Jenga. I'm playing something called Jenga, where they stacking up blocks and the real shit. Like, so you think I play Jenga. So we trying to remove us from the bottom because the whole system is built on our type of this type of caste system. So I'm playing Jenga. So we trying to remove ourselves underneath this shit. So the blocks just only stand on poor whites and non-black people. The system is not built for that shit. Real shit. Like, you think it's gonna tumble easier. It's gonna tumble easier. Whether way you want to go, left wing or right wing, the system is whatever you want to be. It's gonna tumble easier once you remove us from the bottom.
I even love the ones that do a racism every now and again.
I don't know. Whatever. I play Jenga. I remove my people from the bottom of the fucking blocks, man. That shit make the foundation gonna be all unsturdy. It's not built to stand on the backs of poor white people. It's gonna fall.
That is true. No. If it happens, then the whole system will crumble because white people will revolt. I need white people to be their ancestors, minus the lynchings and burning Negroes stuff down. But like the old school, them fighting in the streets about like people fucking up their wages and like doing shit like that. Oh yeah, I need y'all to come back.
But now it make more sense now. So whatever society you want to build, we off the bottom now. Now we feel like we got a say and we got social capital and political capital now to have a real say and help construct that new society, whether it be more capitalistic or more socialist. It's different now because the society is not built upon other people being at the bottom. It's built upon us being at the bottom. You remove those Jenga blocks, that shit wobbly. Wobbly.
That's why everybody's fighting against us getting reparations for upsetting the apple cart.
It's falling. My bad. Sis.
No, I'm saying that's why everybody's fighting against us getting reparations. We're upsetting the apple cart.
Yeah. Nobody likes it. That's how I know we're doing the right thing. We is fighting the oligarchs because nobody likes it. So we doing the right thing. What they talking about? Bro, I gotta say about that shit.
Anybody else before I go back to the video?
No, you're talking about those white like gangs in New York, those white gangs in the industry, like fucking beating the shit out of each other. Like that movie is brutal. Like, hey, what are you doing, mate? Yeah, fuck you, Joey. I'm gonna get off my block. You fucking British man.
My favorite part was when the guy was like Native America for Americans. What's that guy's name? You know, the method actor when he was like Native America for the Americans, and I was like, it would be a white man. Talking about Native America.
It's a great movie.
He's British too. He's Scottish or something. He's from the UK. So
Scottish is
I love
the opening scene is crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, the opening.
They're like axing each other,
and the 70th and more programs, which we're going to target the 10% to the 50%.
And like, it's funny we're talking about like the Irishman too. The Irishman had the big union and everything. So like, yeah, that all that pop culture stuff. It's like it's there, you know, but it's gone. You know, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that white feeling anymore. I hate to tell you, you're not going to get there. They're just very inferiority complex now is the big thing. That incel thing, that white fragility. Yeah, it's not going to, you know, that January 6th was not really a sign of strength. That's a sign of more of insecurity. I think you're not going to have those union riots anymore, in my opinion. I think the white society very going through a weird phase. A lot of them are going far right. A lot of the white supremacists coming back. In Europe, I mentioned Islamophobia. Islamophobia is coming back. A lot of the anti-Semites are coming back in Germany. So like white people are very South Africa farmers are going through some weird. They're talking about white genocide and shit. So we have white people globally are going through very weird shit right now. So I don't think you're going to be getting that strong support, Sam. I hate to. This is the first time I've ever disagreed with you. My heart is racing right now. So let me. Am I going to get it right now?
No, man. No, I still have my hopes that the poor whites and the poor blacks will flip over the table and rob everybody, but I don't know. We'll see. Like that's
you
all
say
I
this
can
a lot, but like
for.
there's a lot of racist poor whites too, isn't there? Like really, really racist poor whites.
The thing about it is like there's levels. So I look at racism like autism. Like I was sitting there talking to my god sister. She was talking about how she went to the South and she went somewhere because we were talking about racism and stuff. And she was like, she went to this one place, like a plantation or something like that. And there's this white guy who owned the place, and then there was this black guy who worked for him, and like the white guy called him nigger, and like the black guy responded to it, and my god sister was sitting there like, oh my god. But they had to explain to her like, yeah, he might call him nigger, but he put 12 of his kids through college and they've been working together for 40 years. So I'm not saying that that's okay, but I'm saying that there's a lot of weird situations going, and we can sit around and try to police people's speech and people's hearts and minds. I don't need white people to not be racist. I just need white people to fight for resources for all of us to get, and then we can figure out who gonna live where. That's it. Like, I don't need white people to stop being racist because I don't think that happens in this generation. I don't think you get people who've been speaking a certain way for 50, 60 years to stop speaking that way, even if you get them to not hate other races. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you're asking for a lot. Like,
yeah, fair point. Yeah, very great
like,
point. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it super simple. It's 2021, right? I was a teenager in the 90s. I have to super check myself with pronouns when I get in certain spaces, because I can fuck them up. And that's no disrespect. It's not on purpose. Stuff keeps changing so fast. It's hard for me to keep up. And I'm trying. So you want somebody's racist grandma who thought slavery was a good thing because they grew up in the South, which when they went to school in their textbooks, it told them that slavery was a good thing because slaves were fed and were happy. So you're mad at their 80-year-old grandma. Yes, sorry, it's a lie, but they were propagandized for decades. I'm not trying to deprogram grandma. I don't have time for that. We can work on getting the kids to do better when we wrangle the fucking school system back from the racists. But that's going to take generations. Like even with Germany, you mentioned Germany, like that shit didn't happen in a generation where they started cleaning up how they talked about the Jews. Like it took monuments. It took education. Like it took years. Like we can't expect racism as in how people feel to end in a generation. We can talk about ending structural racism in a generation, but it's going to take multiple generations to get rid of the racism that people feel. That is different. But we got to focus on the structural shit. Like I said, I don't need Granny to stop saying nigga. I'd like her not to call me a nigger to my face. But but I don't need Granny to stop saying it in her house by herself, mind her business, or talking to her friends. Like you as a youngster could be like, Granny, that's not okay. And maybe over time, Granny will change.
I mean, and to add on to this, it's like, you know what? The only way I can actually help racist people in this country, as far as like, if they just don't want me around, is to be able to move into my own neighborhood, things of that nature, be able to like be self-sufficient. And that's the only way I'm going to be able to, avoid that friction. I mean, because right now what's happening is that, there's a lot of Black people all over this country that have to interact with racist people. Mm-hmm. And it's just the reality that we have to deal with, especially in the South. It's so baked into the South that people, like, we talk about like the Confederate flag, like it's equivalent to the swastika or something like that. Like that's how we think about it, right? But we have to, like, literally in the South, like, well, I don't have to now, but when I did live in the South, like, it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just have to deal with it. You just have, like, it was on the Capitol in South Carolina. You know, every time white people drive by, it's in the back of their pickup trucks. It's just like, it's on their shirts. It's everywhere. And you just have to deal with it and go about your day.
That's it.
So, like, if that's the reality that we're dealing with anyway, without the resources, fuck it. Just give me the fucking resources. We can talk about this other shit later.
And as I said, I'll let you go on the second job. But and for those of us Black folks that want to go live around white folks that don't want to live around us, listen, this is not the 1960s. You can live anywhere. So why do you want to live around a bunch of white people who don't want you there? All right, let's get back through this. We only halfway through the video.
90th percentile, the 80th, and the 70th and more programs which are going to target the 10% to the 50th percent of people who hold the least amount of wealth in white and Black communities. They're actually, the distance between them isn't that high, and any policy which you would target towards lower middle class Americans lifts up people who are in poverty. It's just it's just so difficult whenever we talk about these issues, and people try and reduce it down to things which would mean targeted approaches, quote unquote, when universality is the way to live in a more harmonious politically country and economically just country.
Yes.
So I just think it's something that we should
So he said politically. Right. So basically it's like, okay, universally, so we're going to do it for everybody because everybody's here now. So fuck you and everything contributed, because we want to make it universal so everybody be happy. That's the first thing they said. And then what was the second thing that you just said with that little bullshit? Because that was some bullshit.
He said economically just. That's an interesting one. Economically just.
So how is us not getting reparations economically just? Like I said, I'm for all of the wealth redistribution and everything else. But again, they always talk about these universal programs, but everything that they offer is some bullshit. Like free college. I really need an economist to do a study showing how many white people move from the bottom quintile or decile into like those top tiers and actually become like rich or wealthy. I want to see like how many people are actually doing this. And then I want to see a breakdown of how many people did it through marriage. I want to see the people who actually worked for the money. I don't want to see anybody who married into it. I'll let you have a dead grandfather or a dead aunt, but you can't just marry the money. So, because I want to see this, because the stuff that they offer is free college. A lot of people don't want to go to college. Like some people just like being working class fucking people. And there's nothing fucking wrong with it. Some people just want to fucking fix cars. Some people just want to cook for people. Like, this is just not everybody wants to be a high level executive. Some people find that shit stressful. They don't want to do it. They want to chill. They want to smoke some weed and fucking, like I said, fucking cook. Like, let's be real, and we got to stop forcing this shit on everybody. Like everybody has to be this high power executive or they don't deserve to live a decent life. But like I said, his whole thing is like, well, let's just phase out Black people. But again, free college is not it. Like, that's not it. That's not it for Black people. It's not it for white people. That is some upper middle class to rich issues. Like, that is more of a wealthy issue. Like, it is. It is what it is. Like, that's a top 5% kind of issue on both races and up. It's not a poor people issue for the most part. What's next? Housing vouchers. Fuck your housing voucher. That's all I got to say about that shit. Get paid in a housing voucher. Like, who's going to take my housing voucher? Will certain banks take it? Where will I get to live? And then again, just because you gave me a voucher, when I keep getting these fucking jobs that unstable and I can't pay my rent, or I can't keep my shit and I keep losing it, that doesn't help me. That you gave me a housing voucher for some shit that I'm gonna lose because I'm still not stable. And like I said, I'm all here for the federal jobs guarantee, not at $15 an hour. I need to be like 25. Like, that's something you can talk to me about. But that's not even something that's like mainstream. Like you hear people kind of talking about it, but it's not like pushing. And like say, they say wealth redistribution, but they never say how. When you say wealth redistribution to me, I want everybody to get a check after I get my reparations check. Before reparations, fuck all of you, fuck your kids. I'm sorry, I don't care. But once we get reparations, I am all here for wealth redistribution. You know why? Because I'll get a check for that too. Because when you give me reparations, it's still not going to put me on the level of white people. It's just going to make me stable. It's not going to make me a rich white person. It's going to make me it's going to give me stable white money.
Well, that's if we go with the low end. If we're doing the quadrillions,
Oh yeah.
If we do
no
quadrillions,
you can make it happen. I'm telling you. Because remember, okay, Sam, 90s, right? Do you remember in the 90s, all the politicians used to talk about billions, and that was a thing, right? And then one day, the word trillion just came into the lexicon, right? And now we're talking about legislation. Everybody just says trillion, right?
Trillions, that's
so
true.
I would see reparations. We could bring the concept of the quadrillion into the zeitgeist, right?
I think so too.
Think about it. Next step, let's just bring it, Mud. Come on. 6.4 quadrillion.
I'm with you.
Let's do it. Thomas Kramer says so, right?
6.4 quadrillion makes me want to get out here and really do some work. I'm not gonna lie. I can do some money. I can do something with that.
But if you want meaningful reparations, that's what it means. I mean, Kramer, he crunched the numbers because that involves the pain and suffering. That involves everything, right? I mean, Professor Darity is great because he talks about 14 trillion just to close the wealth gap. I mean, that's one small.
That's the minimum.
6.4. I mean, that would be the pure redress this fucking country would be able to. And internationally, I think we could pull that up because if you make the argument that this is an international economic boom, you get the IMF's ass in there, get Israel to pay up for we gave them get them to pay up. A lot of the stuff that Mr. Trump said, NAFTA needs to pay the NAFTA countries need to pay their bills. You use that same argument. Oh, these, we saved all you fucking countries in World War II and stuff. We did all a lot of these, Dubai's starting to stabilize, UAE's starting to stabilize. We can pool a lot of Chile's doing all right now. Brazil's Brazil's pretty fucked up, but that was a bad example. But there's some countries in Latin America that are doing it. So internationally, Japan, Japan, you guys play baseball. Okay, we'll give you baseball, but let's fucking give us some stuff. So it's not just TVs and stuff. I think we could internationally, not America. America can't pull, but internationally, an international reparations, that's a black reparations package that the whole world can put in for. I think we can get 6.4 quadrillion. Absolutely. It's not even a joke. I think we can do it.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you are the second person to make this argument to me in the past 2 days. And I got to tell you, I'm convinced now. So yeah,
I told you. Have you guys? I don't know if you guys bake, but when you put a few drops of vanilla extract in, it completely changes the flavor. So that's what I'm saying. A few drops makes everything a little sweet. So it's always just a few things.
The joke that came to mind for me was white ice is colder, but I'll take the vanilla extract.
Trying to keep the Cornell West thing. I'm trying to make it a nice, I'm trying to do a little podcast for you, keep it all connected, right? Trying, but. I'm sorry to keep us. I think I'm causing us to derail a lot. I'm sorry, guys.
No, this is our show on a regular basis.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
exciting. Yeah.
About the poverty thing, the poverty programs, they play this game because they're not going to base it on wealth. They're going to base it on
income. Exactly.
So it's always going to be a game where we get screwed in the end with the way they set these things up. So that's all I wanted to say.
So, Mud, are you saying this is a hustle? We're getting fleeced? Should we check our pockets?
Obviously.
But I got one thing to say too, as far as the universal programs. We got historical references to how universal programs historically worked out for us. We got the New Deal. My granddaddy, I always talk about my granddaddy, he fought in World War II. He been in the Marines, he ain't want to be a cook or a steward, but they were they were forcing Negroes to be cooks and stewards. So that's what he had to do. And luckily, he got a small portion of the GI Bill. He didn't really get his portion until after the Civil Rights Movement. You feel me? He got a house alone, had 9 kids because he's from the South, and that was normal to have 9 kids. But you ain't working on the farm, 9 kids in the city. You feel me? And you black, you can't find no real fucking, you know what I mean? It was hard for my daddy and them. growing up. Like, you know what I'm saying? So we have a historical reference of how universal programs work. And we have a historical reference from Reconstruction, how specific policy towards Negroes work for 7 years. Like, it was bloody, it was tough, it was hard. But the gains that like 7, 8, it wasn't even a decade. You got 80-year-old people that couldn't read for 70, 80 years, like, was learning how to read. They were sitting in schools with folios and shit like that. Like, people voting, people getting political power, black senators, black. I'll bring it back because that's a historical reference of how targeted policies towards our community, when the federal government was invested in protecting these policies and these laws, like how it elevated us. Like, and that doesn't mean that we're gonna be like oppressive or exploitive, exploiting other groups of people. That's just what's owed to us based on what this society. I don't give a fuck if it's not fair. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care if you're talking about like, what about the poor whites? It's kind of like, well, what about them? I'm sorry we had a point like real shit. Like, I feel bad for them, but it's like, what about them? What am I supposed to do about that? Like, be in survival mode. Like, real talk. Like, and I hope they get what they're supposed to get, but it's gonna be easier for them to get what they're supposed to get once we get what we're supposed to get. Like I said,
that is true.
Society is not structured off of immigrants and white people, poor whites being at the bottom of the society. It's just not. Our society is not structured that way. Once you take us out the bottom, it changes the whole dynamic, and then we can do whatever the fuck we want to do now. But,
and let's keep it a buck. Like, poor whites live in proximity to blacks. So if we get a bunch of money in our community and start businesses, you think Timmy ain't getting a job? We gonna tell Timmy he can't get a job because he's white? We don't rock like that.
We don't. I ain't gonna lie, we don't. But we got to see that. But the fact is scary because we got the choice to be like, you know what, Timmy, fuck you now.
All right. Let's try to get through this. Let's give it at least 2 minutes. Let's at least get to like the 6-minute mark, y'all.
Harmonious politically country and economically just country.
Yes.
So I just think it's something that we should reframe whenever we talk about this issue.
I absolutely agree. And in fact, a lot of the discourse in the Democratic Party and in the center left and on the left and among liberals basically paints people who are pushing for those universal programs as not caring about these issues.
Right, exactly.
When in fact, they're the ones with the agenda that would do the most if you actually care about racial justice and economic justice and closing the racial wage gap and the racial wealth gap. To your point, one thing that they also highlight here is that the racial wage
Closing the racial wage gap does not close the racial wealth gap, Crystal. You're being disingenuous and a propagandist. I want to keep playing so we can go a little bit further because she just gonna keep saying bullshit, but I just couldn't let it slide.
Gap has actually shrunk somewhat among higher income men. They say that's a sign more African Americans have broken into the upper middle class than was the case in prior decades. So to your point, you're still at a disadvantage if you're more on the affluent end of the spectrum, but you're actually making gains.
Yes.
You're catching up.
Right.
It's the rest of everybody else who's stuck where they were in 1950.
Yeah.
Think about that. And they also say it's not like no progress was made during that time. From the 50s through the 80s, especially during the 60s, it was closing. The thing that they point to the most was a revision, an amendment in 1966 to the Fair Labor Standards Act. So when Congress originally passed that law during the New Deal, in order to appease basically racists in the South, they deliberately exempted service and other industries with many black workers from the minimum wage. So when they amended that and expanded it to cover almost everybody, it still didn't cover everyone, that provided the largest, most noteworthy boost in wages to black Americans that helped to close that wage gap. But once we get to 1980, all of those gains begin to be reversed. And this is the Reagan era of politics. This is union busting. This is tax cuts.
This is affirmative action being pulled back and given to all other groups and not targeted through pipelines for black people. Am I wrong?
That is also it.
Right.
But we're not going to talk about that, huh, Crystal? Because that is what actually led to the increase in wages for black people. They were able to get in the pipelines through affirmative actions to get better opportunity. And then y'all expanded affirmative action to everybody. And we became the lowest beneficiaries of it. White women have become the biggest beneficiary of it. But they can still marry rich white men. So, okay. And yeah, boom. Anything for Crystal for this, and then we'll play out the last of it and do final thoughts.
I just have to say this style of argument, we'll get back into the logical picking part. This style of argument, I find it's coming just to kind of pick a piece of history and then use it to like support your point. This is getting really big now. People are very historically conscious. And when I, like I said, I've been talking about Hindu nationalism a lot the past couple months, a lot of what they're going through is history, is how do we reconcile our colonial history? You know, how do we see the Muslims versus the Hindu? So like everybody has their narrative, and what they do a lot in their arguments is they'll pick like one historical source or one historical piece and do like a non sequitur or make a big insinuation. And a lot of people do this in politics a lot today. Well, they'll try to seem intellectual, like, oh, the Tulsa race riot. They'll throw it in their article, and then they'll try to use it to make a point. Or people will pick a piece of history, or oh, when this New Deal plan, like just like I introduced the plan, the New Deal was huge. It wasn't like the GI Bill, yes, but there were like 29 parts of that bill. So these people will pick. People do this so much. They'll pick like a historical point where you think, oh, they know what they're talking. Oh, it's kind of impressive. But no, because they're not taking in, it's not proper historical scholarship where you take a convergence of sources, a convergence of sociology. I mean, I have this book in my hand now that I've been skimming through most of this stream. It's called The Origins of the Urban Crisis, which is called Race and Inequality in Post-War Detroit, which talks about all this stuff like post-slavery all the way till the 1990s, how Detroit got to where it was. It's got pictures and everything. That picture I DM'd you, Sam, with the wall, where they actually built a wall between the white and the black.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this book is really good, but the best part I love about this book is that the sources are I know you do audio only. So the sources are like 1/6 of the entire book.
Nice. Yeah.
So you have to, in order to make these big claims and with American history, you can't just use like one fucking New Deal thing, one newspaper clipping. And I just noticed in argumentation, maybe it's because they need an 8-minute video or they want to seem like experts, but I don't like people using, we have a complicated history. We have a beautifully despicable country. I say, like, the country is beautiful in a certain disgusting way, but we have to be honest with our history. And I think use all the sources. If you're really going to talk about the New Deal, you need a 3-hour stream. You need to really sit there and talk. But they're going to use these points to sound like they know what they're talking about. But I just find it incredibly disingenuous. I see it in many different types of logic these days. Perhaps it's related to social media or internet, being able to just Google things. You used to be able to actually have to sit in a library and stuff. So maybe I don't know what it is, but I don't know if I'm just going off, but this style of argument is interesting to me. Just kind of cherry picking,
Yeah. We're glad you see it too. Cause we get on them all the time, like, which is so funny. I hate them so much, but I still watch their show.
To the common person that's just working a job, getting home at 7, waking up at the crack of dawn, getting home at 7:30. The kids are flipping out on stuff, and they just want to get some news. Oh, hey, Joe Rogan says, Sagar and Crystal are great. 8-minute clip. Oh, cool. Oh, black people are doing all right. Fucking yeah, let's stop Bernie. Woo. And that's all they need. And most Americans are going to see that. They're not as nuanced as you guys.
It's true. It's true, because most white people don't know black people in their day-to-day lives. And the black people they know are not telling them what the real struggle is as a black person. Like,
yeah, that's the only thing I had to say. Just my last thing. Yeah.
No, that was perfect. Thank you. All right. I'm going to play
history
this
matters,
last minute and a half, and then we'll do final thoughts.
All right.
I was good. I didn't say a single MF today.
For rich people and corporations, this is deregulation. This is the entire Reaganomics way of thinking, which crushed the working class altogether and especially hit black workers disproportionately. That's been the legacy there.
No, and it's very important to try and understand root causes of a lot of this and where, like we said, it's coming from. And this is why I despise elite liberalism in the way that they talk about diversity. Like the Kamala Harris view of diversity is that more black people need to work at Goldman Sachs or like need to work at Gold. I mean, are you better off if every company on the NASDAQ that goes public has like one black board member, but 90% of black people are still poor? No, it's ridiculous. It actually leads to more tokenization and just more exploitation of everybody at large. And so of course, there is a reason why this has been co-opted by our rich elites, is because they can do this while appearing to be progressive and buying off, people in power, while at the same time actually making more money than they ever have before. for? The answer is clear. It's always been clear. It's actually basic economics, but nobody wants to discuss it.
Melding the words Black Lives Matter, putting it on your website while you're crushing and busting the union of the majority black workers down at your fulfillment center in in Alabama for Amazon. All right, we're going to have more Rising for you after this.
Meh. Always a meh. A super meh. All right, John, you are our guest, so we will let you go first. Final thoughts.
Thank you so much for bringing me on. And it's just like, it's amazing how kind of far right these people sound now. Like now that Trump's gone, like they need a new grift. So it's amazing how reactionary, like Jimmy's getting like this now. It's just, I listen to that outro and they're like, oh, BLM and this stuff. I'm like, what am I listening to? Am I listening to Tucker Carlson here? I mean, what is going on? I don't know what's going on to politics in this country. Maybe that's why I like to focus on geopolitics in other countries. I mean, America is fucked up. I'm very happy that the reparations discussion allows us to talk about how fucked up it is, but also how to solve it. You know, Sagar is gaslighting by saying the easy solution, but he doesn't know the easy solution. You guys know it. And thank you for putting out so much great content to get people like me. I wish I could say that, I'm going to talk to as many white people as possible, but I wish I could say it's going to be easy. But the stubbornness of the stubbornness of the white person is always going to be you guys know, the big stumbling block. But I think we can get somewhere. And I think specifically the Republican Party might be able to really use this reparations issue to maybe salvage something, and not as a pandering way, but it might. But I think you guys are really correct about your whole kind of brand of going after the left. I think it's really wise. I think it's really unique, and it was fun to banter. I'm not sorry for offending any upper caste Hindus or anything like that. But you could type in Del Vento. You see me around there. You could listen to some of my music. You could see some of my political takes. But I got a real life. I got an online life, so you could see me around. And I'd love to keep following what you guys are doing. Thank you. Have a great day, great evening, all that stuff. Huh? And fuck these guys.
Yeah. Okay. So again, mixing up the racial wealth gap with the wage gap. I explained at the beginning of this why it matters, because wealth and wages are different. Because like I said, my house appreciating while I'm making the same wage as my coworkers who don't own shit and will never own shit. Like I got some friends in my life, like they'll never own a house. Like if they don't get reparations or if something doesn't change in this economy, they'll never own a house. A lot of them probably will never have children because they won't even think about it right now because they barely can support themselves. So, and this is happening across races. Like a lot of people are just like, I can't afford to take care of myself. I'm not like bringing another mouth in. So my whole thing is, y'all stay gaslighting us about not wanting to pay us reparations. You keep talking about these programs, which I remember, John, you were like, I'd rather them just cut me a check than all these programs. And that was the first time I've heard like a white person say that. But I was like, I kind of understand that too, because a lot of times it ends up just in a bunch of bureaucracy and it ends up being in programs that don't fix the problem. It's like you want to create a program that doesn't guarantee my outcome. It's not like you're going to give me free college and guarantee that I get a job in that field. Then that would be something we could talk about, because then at least I know, okay, well, if I go to school to be an engineer, engineers make $80,000 a year. As long as I graduate and do well in my classes, I'm guaranteed an $80,000 a year job at the end of it. Then we could talk about free college, because then it's a pipeline into a job. It's basically a training program for a job. And can we just bring back making fucking jobs train people? Like, these fuckers don't pay taxes. Why are we forcing people to go into debt to train themselves to work for fuckers who don't pay taxes? I'm just saying, like, am I wrong? A lot of these companies don't even pay taxes. Like, so they're not even putting back into the system. So what's the point? So again, until y'all show me better solutions, I'm going to keep calling out your bullshit, because as of right now, reparations is the #1 solution for Black Americans. And for other Americans, y'all better figure it out. Like I said, I feel like wealth redistribution with a federal jobs guarantee and UBI is it, but you need Black people to fight with you for that. And we're not doing that until we get reparations, because we don't trust you. Because you'll get your little goodies and then you'll listen to Sagar and he'll tell you that we all have the same amount of money now, but we'll still be working fucking poor, and you'll still be like living in nice neighborhoods where your water's not poisoned and you're not like for real. So like where your water's not poisoned and where the cops aren't shooting your kids, like your kids aren't getting like beat up for like riding their skateboards, you know, in the street and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it is, I don't know, either get up, or I don't know, get up, was it? Get up or put up, shut up, put up or shut up. I guess that's just where I'm at. I know we get exhausted. And I'm glad you're here, John D, because it's nice to have people who like, we get it. Like it's helping, because it is frustrating because you keep watching shows, you keep seeing these arguments, and it's just it burns you out. Like it totally burns you out because you're just like, just the way people talk about Black people, like, and the way that non-white people talk about Black people, like some of the stuff that non-white people say about Black people, if they were white, we would crucify them. There's a lot of people getting away with shit. There's a lot of anti-Blackness going on. Maybe we need to get on the Asian shit and put some money together and start a Stop Anti-Blackness campaign and start calling out all this anti-Blackness, because the anti-Asian shit, they're counting like just vocal crimes. So if somebody is verbally assaulting an Asian person, that is counted in those hate numbers. So, you know, let's start reporting every time somebody call you a nigga, or because we don't report stuff like that. Like, think about, I've been called a nigga multiple times in my life. I've never called the police. I've never called the hotline to make sure that it was documented and counted so they would have it as anti-Black hate. You understand what I'm saying? So where are these numbers coming from? Who's reporting? Like, I just need to know a little bit more. Maybe I need to, and I'm not saying that they're not being verbally assaulted. I'm just saying if verbal assaults count, then Black people have the highest fucking hate, you know, what's that called? Hate crime numbers happening to us, period. Because I was verbally assaulted by an Asian lady and her husband a couple months ago at the Japanese market. A Filipina lady had to step in and literally cuss them out for me. And then she threatened to call the cops on them. I had to ask her not to call the cops because I was afraid I was going to get shot. Because that, as a Black person, my first thought is, don't call the people. They're going to come and fuck with me. I'm the only Black person here.
That's real. That's
fucking sushi, god damn it. But like I said, she literally had to step in because they were like harassing me, like following me around, harassing me. She literally stepped in between us, cussed them out, told them how they're a discredit to their race. They're the reason that people don't have problems with Asian people. Like, she broke it down, and she was like, if you bother, I'll record. Like, she was like, well, I'll record you. Like, but I couldn't have that kind of response. I like the reason why that situation worked out so well. Even the people in the line, like later on, they were going to the security and they're like, yeah, the lady was being harassed. Like, everybody in the line felt sympathy for me. Why? Because I sat there and took it. They got attitude. I walked to the back of the line. So people literally saw me trying to diffuse the situation. But if I would have popped off and started acting crazy, then I would have been on a video for anti-Asian hate. You understand what I'm saying? And that's the thing, like, I need to see the full video, because a lot of times people start shit and then when Black people lose their goddamn mind, then it's a problem. So that's all I have to say. We're going to move on. Mud, what you got? Or John, what you got?
Yeah, you said a word. That's the same thing. Like, you already know I'm a big Black dude, so I got to tread lightly. I got to really tread lightly, like in certain situations. Sometimes I don't really give a fuck though. I live in New Jersey, but kind of liberal, but something like real. So I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, it's only one person that said nigga to me, and that was a little kid, and he fought them white boys. Like, but I live in a Black, my experience is different. Like, but I had to deal with a lot of microaggression, not me anti-Black shit. Like I said, I had the Italian coach, he'll say some low-key racist shit, just be like, I remember, matter of fact, you know what, the thing about my Italian coach was like, work hard, like real. She showed me love and all this shit. But I remember we was working out. Me and my boy, he also ate us. He's also American, descendant of chattel slavery. You know what I mean? Like, we working out in the wrestling room one day. We listened to hip hop. I was working out. And I remember, like, we listened to Biggie or something. He just he running past us, a grown man. We like 15 years old. He like, nigga. Like when the nigga part came, I'm like, yo, chilling with my nigga. He like, chilling with my nigga. He like, yo, we running like, what the fuck? But we like, yo, this shit ain't right. What the fuck? Like, so I had to deal with this type of like low key type racism. But as far as this left wing with Saga and Crystal Ball always often do, which I say like they really like the racist bank robbers. Like, you feel me? Like Crystal Ball always aiding and abetting, and Saga just going into the bank with the gun, like, yo, real shit. I hate Negroes, lay down. And Crystal Ball just got the car running. But like the whole thing about the whole shit, especially just want to say one thing about affirmative action. The reason why a lot of people benefit from affirmative action that's not Negroes now, that don't descend from slavery now, is because when the bill was written, a lot of these affirmative action bills was written during the time when JFK was president, LBJ was president. And you got to understand that there was not a huge immigrant population. Like, people knew what this bill was for. So when they added words like regardless of race, creed, and color, they were trying to like stop. You can't discriminate against Negroes. They, you feel me? Like, so they's like, you feel me? Despite of race, creed, and color, it was a way to, you can't say race, creed, you can't say they. You feel me? Like, and then after they passed that bill, and then people started getting into shit, and then somehow white women snuck their way in and put gender, and we know where that went from there. But but like it's always a pleasure. It's always bullshit, but it's a pleasure to be here with y'all. I'm happy that bro, John D, Italian bro, came on the show with us. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you already know Sam is a genius, Mud is a genius. And John D brought some real insights to the show. So like this a good one, man. You really put their ass on the grill on this one. And I'm happy to be here. We getting the fuck out of here. Fuck these anti-black lefties, and Saga is a white man. I don't give a what you tell me. He's an upper middle class white man. Mouth, peace.
So I was watching this Indian matchmaking show, and this Indian gentleman was like, sometimes we've been called coconuts. And I was like, I don't know if that's offensive, but it sounds like a good description of Saga. We call blacks Oreos. So if that was offensive, sorry, I'm a 90s kid. Drop it in the comments. I won't say it again.
You mean to you mean to sell, Sam? I'm talking to you. I'm talking about this shit. I
saw it on the Indian matchmaking show on Netflix. They should have edited it out.
God damn. What you said? Thanks, sis.
Well, I mean, shit, everybody's pretty much said it. The reality is that I guess the left, or whatever this is supposed to be, the people that are trying to represent the working class, they keep trying to push through this, I guess, imagined unity amongst us. And they're trying to push it through by just saying that we're all the same and ignoring all of the differences and the nuances in our experiences in this country. And the thing is they know better. They understand better than this, and they don't care. And that's the part where we have to, we really have to be standoffish with these people, because we see that they're trying to manipulate us. We see that not only they're trying to manipulate us, they're trying to manipulate people against us and against our cause. So, at this point, I don't even know where my politics are anymore, because I feel like everybody's trying to play us. So, yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Every man for himself, and trying to fight for the collective within that. Shit's crazy. So, okay, so I guess this will close up Crystal and Sagar. Sagar's still an anti-black racist. I like to say it a lot. Maybe that's why our numbers don't grow on our show, because I'm always calling people racist, and that be fucking up the algorithm. But I don't care. Like, some people are anti-black. And Sagar's anti-black as fuck. Like, even when he talks about us, he's super fucking anti-black. So it is what it is. And I'm gonna say one thing. Listen, we can work towards a more equitable society after you pay your debt. Period. And let me tell you why. Because you who got here after the Cosby Show aired do not deserve the same payout / whatever as the people who built this country for free, who were bombed and terrorized in this country by other American citizens, which we were citizens We were Americans. We built this shit. They were we were bombed. We were bombed. We were burnt out. They fucked us up. They pushed us out of whole fucking counties. Look what they did in Forsyth County, Georgia. They pushed out Black people out of a whole county. So y'all don't get to come here in the 80s when white people ain't beating the brakes off of people of color, because y'all wasn't here really like that before then. When white people wasn't beating the brakes off of y'all, when white people wasn't burning down your fucking houses, when white people weren't burning down your fucking shops. Y'all don't get to come here now when you get to move into certain nice neighborhoods because redlining isn't here. Like, no, you don't get to come here now and get the same. Do I think that society should be more equitable? Yes. But do I think that you should get to jump in front of the line of the poor whites who have been here for over 100 years either? No, I don't. Sorry. Citizenship and like people being here for generations and trying to build something in this country and it not turning into shit for them should matter for something too. Like, real talk, for all these people whose family, like, you know, I got to pull out my cape for the whites because I like to piss off some Negroes every time around. You know, I got to do it. So since we're at the kids, but you know, all these white people who done died, you know, in these coal mines and coal miners' lungs and all this other people, like those people have died for this country and to build this country as well. The contribution is different. I'm not comparing it to the Black American contribution, but it is still a blood contribution that was given to this country to build this country that people who got here after the Cosby Show did not contribute. I'm sorry. It is what it is. So I'm not going to play. This is where I start to agree with people when they start talking about the identity politics, because people of color are not old shit in this country. Black Americans who descend from slaves are. If you decided to immigrate to a racist country, you knew what you were signing up for. We were brought here. Some of us work here. We've been mixed around, jumbled, enslaved, bombed, terrorized, locked up, still got people in slavery in prisons to this day. So no, we are not the same. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, and they got to tap into the richest country in the world.
And get a hookup because they were brown off of our backs. Off of
the country that we built. Essentially, that's what it is. That's the end of it.
They tell us that we should get over our shit because they was able to come here and build something. And then when you be like, Samantha, why don't you fight for immigration? Samantha, what about the babies at the border? In the words of Bernie Mac, fuck them kids.
Fuck them kids. Fuck the kids? Yeah.
And let me tell you why. Because when y'all been locking my fucking kids in jails at 12, 13, 14 for 20, 30, 40, 50 fucking years. Where are you motherfuckers crying at these children institutional centers? Where's fucking AOC and that white fucking thing? Talking about, well, you know, it's a carceral state. Where do you think that this shit comes from? The fact that you allowed this shit to happen to Black people for decades is the reason that it is happening to children now. This is the same shit that you did to Black people. It's like that fucking quote where it's like, first they came for the socialists, but I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for this group, but I wasn't that group. Then one day they came for me and there was nobody to stand the fuck up. Well, my legs is tired, baby. My legs is tired. And I'm not saying that your kids deserve to be mistreated. I'm not saying that. But your kids will be the same kids in 20 years that'll say that they don't give a fuck about Black people and their plight. So we got to have a real conversation about race in this country. Because y'all got to do better. Because I fight more with people of color than I do with these racist poor whites about this race shit and this reparation shit. I fight harder with people of color. People of color tell me faster that my people don't deserve shit than poor whites. So if we got to come together as a group, I'm going to go in with the whites. I'm even going to go in with the borderline racist whites. Because like I said, racism is like it's like autism. It's a spectrum. You got your people who are full blown. You got your people who grew up in America and are trained to be racist and haven't taken the time to deprogram themselves. And then you got white people who are trying to do better. But they like on a whole nother spectrum. They're not even on the, I don't even put them on the same fucking thing. Cause that's like unicorns and shit. Like when John D pulled out a book and shit, talking about, oh yeah, this book and they go through me. I was like, oh goddamn, unicorn. We got a whole fucking unicorn in the room. No, but you understand what I'm saying? Most white people do not care enough to sit around and read books about Black people. Like they don't. Even if they like Black people, they don't care enough to understand the structural, systematic way of how all of this works. But at the end of the day, we are trying to build the United States of America. Most other groups, and I talk to Black immigrants group, I talk to Black immigrant groups, I talk to Latino groups. The only people that I don't talk to a lot are white immigrants. I'm sorry, I don't run across y'all a lot. Every now and again I do, because my friend, I call her Feds. Yeah, my friend, I call her Fed. She'd be probing people and asking all these kind of questions. So she'll randomly catch a white immigrant, or being that she's first generation Ghanaian American, they like to identify themselves as immigrants. You know, to Black Americans, y'all don't identify yourselves. Y'all just be Americans. As long as we start talking to other immigrants, you're like, oh yeah, my people just got here, or I'm first generation, or that's when you find out. So yes, so that's what it is. That's where I believe the coalition is to be built. I have no interest in building the Rainbow Coalition. I have friends who I have coalitions with, like, we will do whatever for each other. I will make sure they're straight. They'll make sure I'm straight. But as for a general, larger coalition, I have not seen it be built. And until y'all tackle the anti-Blackness in your communities, that coalition is nowhere to be built. And the next thing is, until you decide if you want to build the United States of America, or if you want to build your country back home, that's another discussion too. But that's it. That's it. That's all I got. That's it. Anybody else? That's it. I think that's it.
Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom.
Listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race, you're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake. Lineage go back to U.S. Southern plantations. Lineage, Jim Crow and mass incarceration. Redlining lynchings, we are old from this nation. You're not about justice if you ain't for reparations. MG the wise one, cousin mother intellectual. Samantha bringing fire, anti-Black, we pressing you. No permanent friends and no permanent enemies. The backbone of the country to win. You need our energy. You gon' see. Listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. You're listening to Reset Race. You're now tuned in to Reset Race. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Put them back on the grill again. We grilling them. Back on the grill again. We grilling them. You're listening to Reset Race. ADOS need reparations to make America great. You're tuned in to Reset Race. We no longer starving while others eat off our plate. No. You're listening to Reset Race. We focused on our justice claim. We know what is at stake. You're tuned in to Reset Race. You'll find out who really about justice and really who fake.
Until you do right by me, everything you think about is gonna crumble.